Don't freak out. I borrowed the drives for collateral. I need $15,000 by Friday, or the Avengers files get leaked. You earn too much anyway. You won't miss it. I stared at the yellow sticky note left on my empty desk. My brother Leon hadn't just stolen my $16,000 workstation. He had taken unreleased movie footage that carried a $2 million liability clause in my contract. I put my phone down. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just realized that my brother had turned my career into a hostage negotiation. Have you ever had a family member who saw your hard work as their personal piggy bank? Tell me in the comments. I want to know I'm not the only one. My first instinct wasn't to call the police. It was to call my mother, Emila. I thought, surely she didn't know. I thought she would be horrified that her son had committed a felony against her daughter. I dialed her number. She picked up on the first ring, which should have been my second warning. Jessica, she whispered, her voice tight and frantic. Listen to me. Don't do anything rash. Rash? I looked at the empty space where my livelihood used to be. Mom, Leon stole my workstation. He stole the Marvel files. He's asking for $15,000. I know, she said. The air left my lungs. You know, he owes money to bad people. Jessica. Loan sharks. Real criminals. They threatened to break his legs if he didn't pay up by the weekend. We didn't have a choice. We? I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. You helped him plan this? We didn't have the cash. You do. You make that much in a month with your computer work. Just pay his debt, Jessica. Do you want your brother in a wheelchair? Are you really that greedy that you'd value a hard drive over his life? I hung up. I didn't slam the phone down. I just pressed end and stared at the black screen. Greedy. That word unlocked a vault of memories I had tried to keep shut. For the last 2 years, I hadn't been a sister or a daughter. I had been a human shield. When Leon lost $5,000 on a crypto scam 6 months ago, who paid it off so he wouldn't have an eviction on his record? I did. When he needed a legitimate job to impress a girl, who pulled strings to get him a production assistant gig at my studio? I did. He quit after 2 days, because he said fetching coffee was demeaning. And when my father, Walter, retired early without reading the fine print on his pension, who stepped in to pay their health insurance premiums every month? Me. I looked around my studio. Every cable, every monitor, every piece of software was paid for with 16-hour days and missed weekends. I had clawed my way into the VFX industry, turning a passion for computer games, as my father called it, into a 6-figure career. But to them, my money wasn't mine. It was a family resource pool that I was hoarding. They looked at my career and saw a magic ATM. They looked at Leon, a 26-year-old man who refused to work because he was waiting for his big break, and saw a victim. Mom wasn't asking me to save Leon from a mistake. She was asking me to sacrifice my career to save him from a consequence. She knew about the NDA. She knew about the liability. She just didn't care. In the hierarchy of our family, Leon's physical comfort ranked higher than my survival. I sat in the dark for a long time. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. I realized then that I had been playing a game I couldn't win. I thought if I gave enough, fixed enough, and paid enough, they would finally respect me. But you can't buy respect from people who feel entitled to your paycheck. My phone buzzed again. It wasn't a text from my mom apologizing. It was a text from Leon. And what he sent me next shattered whatever hesitation I had left. The text message from Leon lit up the dark room like a muzzle flash. It was a screenshot. My stomach dropped as I recognized the file directory immediately. He hadn't just stolen the hardware. He had cracked the encryption. Then came the text below it. You really should stop using Rover 2018 for everything, Jess. Too easy. I stared at the name of our childhood golden retriever. We had buried that dog together in the backyard when I was 12 and Leon was 9. He had cried in my arms for hours. Now, he was using that memory as a skeleton key to destroy my life. It wasn't a sophisticated hack. It was something worse. It was intimate. He used the trust of being my brother to bypass the security of being my enemy. A second text followed. Watching the 3 dots dance on the screen felt like waiting for a bomb to detonate. Wire the 15 grand by tomorrow night, or I upload a 30-second clip to Reddit. The internet loves a good leak. Your NDA won't survive the morning. I sat back in my chair. The tears I had been fighting finally evaporated, replaced by a clarity so sharp it cut. For a moment, I had actually considered paying. I had opened my banking app. I had calculated how much of my savings I would have to drain. Why? Why was my first instinct to set myself on fire to keep them warm? That's when it hit me. I wasn't just being a good sister. I was trapped in the conditioning of a lifetime. All those years, I thought my parents were just helpless. I thought they were blind to Leon's toxicity. But they weren't blind. They were terrified. They knew exactly what Leon was, a volatile, gambling addict who destroyed everything he touched. They lived in fear of his outbursts, his debts, his crashes. And I was their solution. I wasn't their child. I was their containment strategy. They didn't love Leon more than me. They just feared him more. They were willing to sacrifice my stability, my career, and my future just to keep him quiet for another month. They were feeding the competent child to the wolf so he wouldn't eat them. It was a normalization of cruelty that I had accepted as love. But looking at that text message, a threat to destroy my entire professional existence over a gambling debt, the illusion shattered. They weren't asking for help. They were negotiating a hostage release. And they were on the hostage-taker's side. I stood up. I walked to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. I looked in the mirror. The scared sister was gone. The daughter who wanted approval was gone. In my line of work, when a project goes off the rails, you don't panic. You enter producer mode. You assess the liability, you secure the assets, and you neutralize the threat. Leon wanted to play a game of high stakes? Fine. He thought he was dealing with his pushover sister. He forgot he was dealing with a woman who managed million-dollar contracts for a living. I grabbed my keys and my purse. I didn't go to the bank. I drove straight into the city. If they wanted to make this a criminal transaction, I was going to treat it like one. I drove past my bank and didn't even tap the brakes. 10 minutes later, I walked into the glaring fluorescent lights of the District 3 police station. It smelled like floor wax and indifference. I approached the desk sergeant, a guy who looked like he was counting the seconds until his shift ended. "I need to report an extortion attempt," I said. He didn't even look up from his clipboard. "Family member? That's a civil matter, ma'am. Unless there's immediate physical danger, you need to file a report online or take them to small claims court. We don't referee domestic disputes." I had expected this. In their eyes, I was just another sister squabbling over borrowed property. I reached into my bag and pulled out a heavy binder I kept for client negotiations. I dropped it on the counter. The thud made him look up. "It would be a civil matter if he stole my television," I said, keeping my voice low and steady. "But what my brother stole is a RAID array containing unreleased intellectual property belonging to Marvel Studios. The contents are valued at $50 million. If that drive isn't recovered by tomorrow morning, the studio's legal team isn't just going to sue me. They are going to file a negligence lawsuit against this precinct for refusing to recover stolen trade secrets after a verified report." The sergeant blinked. The word Marvel had done the heavy lifting, but the phrase negligence lawsuit finished the job. "Wait here." 2 minutes later, a man in a rumpled suit walked out. Detective Miller. He didn't look like a hero. He looked tired, but he had the sharp eyes of someone who knew the difference between a family spat and a felony. "You have proof of the demand?" he asked. I played the recording of Leon's voicemail. Then I showed him the screenshots of the file directory. Miller listened to Leon's voice demanding $15,000. He looked at the timestamps. He looked at the liability clause in my contract. "That's not just theft," Miller said, rubbing his chin. "That's extortion. And given the value of the IP, we're looking at grand larceny in the first degree. This is a major felony." He wasn't looking at me like a victim anymore. He was looking at me like a witness in a case that would make his career. "We can't just kick down the door," Miller said. "We need him to accept the money. We need the transaction to happen. It confirms the extortion." "I know," I said. "I'm going over there tonight. Not alone." "You're not." The next hour was a blur of calculated efficiency. There were no forms to fill out, no waiting in line. They moved me to a back room. Miller handed me a thick envelope. "Flash roll," he said. "The top 2 bills in each stack are real hundreds. The rest is paper cut to size. It looks like 15 grand. He sat down across from me with a photocopy machine. "We've recorded the serial numbers of the real bills. Once he takes this, he's in possession of marked state funds." Then came the wire. It wasn't the invisible spy tech you see in movies. It was a small, black plastic square, about the size of a matchbook, taped painfully to the center of my chest with medical adhesive. It was bulky. "Wear a jacket," Miller instructed. "If he hugs you, keep your arms crossed. Do not let him pat you down." I put on my denim jacket. I looked in the mirror. I didn't look like a woman about to visit her parents. I looked like a soldier suiting up. "One last thing," Miller said. "We need to set the stage. Send the text." I pulled out my phone. My hands weren't shaking. I felt a cold, strange calm. I typed the message to my mother. "Emila, fine. You win. I have the cash. I'll bring it to the house tonight. But I need Leon to sign a waiver saying the debt is cleared so the IRS doesn't audit me." It was the perfect bait. It appealed to their greed and their fear of taxes. It made me sound defeated, bureaucratic, and compliant. I hit send. 3 dots danced on the screen instantly. They must have been sitting by the phone, waiting for me to break. Her reply came in a single emoji. A thumbs up. No, thank you. No, I'm sorry it came to this. Just a casual confirmation that they had successfully bullied me into submission. I looked at Detective Miller. They took the bait. All right, Miller said, checking his radio. We'll have a plainclothes unit parked down the street. We listen live. The second the money changes hands and he confirms he has the drive, you say the phrase, "I just want my life back." That's our go signal. I walked out of the station and into the cool night air. I touched the hard plastic lump under my jacket. I wasn't just bringing money. I was bringing the consequences they had spent a lifetime avoiding. I parked my car 2 houses down. Detective Miller had told me to park normally, to look defeated. I walked up the driveway of the house I grew up in. It used to feel like a sanctuary. Now, it just felt like a crime scene that hadn't been taped off yet. I knocked. My father, Walter, opened the door. He didn't look like a man whose son was committing a felony. He looked like a disappointed school principal dealing with an unruly student. "Glad you finally came to your senses, Jess," he said, stepping aside. "Come in. Let's get this over with." The living room was exactly as I remembered it, stifling. The air smelled of stale potpourri and dust. My mother's collection of antique porcelain figurines lined the shelves, hundreds of painted glass eyes watching me. They cared more about dusting those statues than they ever did about my career. And there he was. Leon was sprawled out on his favorite recliner, watching a basketball game. He was eating a turkey sandwich, crumbs falling onto his shirt. He didn't even sit up when I walked in. On the coffee table, right next to his vape pen and a half-empty soda, sat my RAID drive. The black metal casing was scratched. He had treated the most important object in my life, $50 million of intellectual property, like a coaster. "Did you bring it?" Leon asked, his mouth still full. My mother, Amila, rushed over from the kitchen. She was wiping her hands on a dish towel, acting for all the world like we were about to sit down for a board game. "Now, everyone stay calm," she said, her voice dripping with that fake peacemaker tone. "Jessica is doing the right thing. We're just family helping family. Let's not make this ugly." Ugly? They were extorting me in the living room where we used to open Christmas presents. It couldn't get uglier. I felt the medical tape holding the wire to my chest pull against my skin. It itched. I was terrified the plastic lump would show through my jacket, so I kept my arms crossed tight over my chest. "I have the money," I said. I pulled the thick envelope from my inside pocket. Leon's eyes finally left the TV. He sat up. The boredom vanished, replaced by a greedy, predatory hunger. He reached out a hand. "Gimma." I pulled the envelope back. Detective Miller was listening from a van outside. I needed Leon on record. "Not yet," I said, forcing my voice to shake. "If I give you 15,000, you hand over the drive immediately. No copies, no leaks." "Yeah," Leon said, reaching for the cash. "Deal done. You get your nerd box, I get my life back." "And you admit you took it from my house?" Walter cut in. "Jessica, stop. We're past this." "I need to hear him say it," I said. "You took it to force me to pay, right?" Leon sneered. "I didn't take it. I secured it. Until you decided to be a good sister. That was enough. Possession, extortion, on tape." I set the envelope on the table. Leon snatched it, counting the bills with a smirk. My parents visibly relaxed, convinced the problem was over. "See?" my mother said softly. "Now we can move on." I stepped back toward the door. "One thing I forgot," I said. "That drive doesn't just hold my portfolio. It contains unreleased footage from a Phase 4 superhero film." Leon scoffed. "The studio values it at $50 million, I continued. "And since you all know that now, and I have it recorded, you're no longer just stealing from me. You're holding corporate property for ransom." Walter froze. "By harboring Leon and facilitating the payoff," I said calmly. "You're accessories to corporate espionage and grand larceny. And since Leon has no assets, the studio will likely seize this house." "Silence," Walter exploded. "You said it was just her work," Emila screamed. "Give it back. We didn't know." The united front collapsed instantly. I touched my jacket zipper and said clearly, "I just want my life back." The front door burst open. "Police! Search warrant!" Officers flooded the room. Leon panicked and tried to hide the cash. Bad move. He was tackled, cuffed, and the drive bagged as evidence. Miller approached me. "We got everything. Extortion, theft, conspiracy. At the station, my parents begged me to save Leon. I begged you to help me," I said coldly. "You chose him. Now the law has too." I walked out, blocked their numbers, and never looked back. Leon was sentenced to 5 years for grand larceny and extortion. My parents avoided prison but lost their savings and the house they valued more than me. I sold mine, bought a secure downtown loft, and finally had something priceless. Silence. Family isn't blood. It's respect.